one thing that you want to do if you're going to be coaching for a while, you want to look ahead and you want to have a 2 or maybe even a 3-year plan. With high school, every 4 years, it's a completely different group of people that you're going to have there. So you can't really have a 5-year plan. This is mostly, I think, applies to coaches who do cut, but it also applies to no cut coaches to some degree. Like, for instance, I inherited a team where 9 out of the 10 varsity seniors all graduated in the same year. And then the one junior who was left decided she didn't want to play because all her friends were gone. I get to take a JV team. Now, if that other coach had planned better to have more players prepared, there'd be more of a consistent, steady success there. What I try to do on my teams is have a pretty good representation of different classes. Obviously, you want to have a nice, healthy senior class, but then you need some juniors and you need some sophomores and you need at least a couple of freshmen to be on your squad because you want them to be around and have that 4-year experience. Another thing that I do is I look at my lineup and I say, okay, let's see here. 4 seniors all playing singles. Let's see. Can 1 or 2 of them play doubles so that I can get some juniors playing singles so that then when they come back next year, then they will be, having that varsity experience in those positions, and we won't have to train brand new, all of a sudden, 4 new singles players. Which players are capable of playing singles and doubles? I mean, and one time I had a player number 5 on my ladder, and he couldn't volley to save his life. And he also could not serve to a target very well. So this was going to be a problem. So anyway, so he ended up playing number 4 singles. And then because the rules allow it, I was able to bring my number 4 singles player into the doubles, which bolstered our doubles. And sometimes you can look at these things, you can figure out, okay, how does this intermarry with the interests of a future year's needs?
You nailed that well, because if you don't build your freshman and sophomore class players and develop them, you'll have a good year maybe for 1 or 2 years when those juniors or seniors who are maybe more talented, they graduate, they move on. And I've had teams where I've seen where coaches inherit a good team, but only focus on the top 6 or 7 kids. And then they're good for 1 year. And then they're the bottom of the barrel the next 5 years because they're not developing. And as you know, I'm a no-cut coach, and I've developed the ways to program my team so I'm effective and efficient. Because I've seen where freshman girls, freshman boys, especially freshmen, but also sophomores and even some juniors, become so good because they became passionate, they matured, they got physically stronger. But if you cut a player, you cut ever knowing what that kid could have been. And very few ever come back to a program where they've been cut. I've had one coach say, oh, I'll encourage him to come back next year. That kid in front of the whole team realized he was not good enough. In your eyes, he's not going to show his face or her face again. He's going to find another activity. Now, there's exceptions where some people are like, I'm going to prove to that coach I can make this team. That's rare. The idea here is that if you take good care of your freshman, sophomore, and junior players and include them in as many things as you can, whether it's part being fully engaged in the practices, whether they're invited to the team parties, so critical to the longevity of a successful team.
You probably have 2 really important objectives as you get started with your season. The first one is getting your varsity players into the groove, the routine of practice. And then as soon as they're in that groove and they can have a little bit more autonomy, probably even simultaneously, you need to train any of the beginners or new players who don't have a lot of competitive experience on your team in what they need to be competent. So once I've done those 2 things, then what I do is I come back to my varsity and I try to take them up a notch. Once they've got some things that they can practice for a short while, then I go to my next group and work with them. So I might go in groups of 4 or 6 at a time. I'll matriculate down the courts. Over the season, then I will have spent almost an equal amount of time with every player. Although a little bit more of my time is going to my varsity team because they're the ones whose results count right now. I want every player on the team to know that I absolutely do care about their development, that I am watching them play. After every match, they're going to get some feedback and they're going to have something that they can work on for the next practices and matches. And so they have a plan. And then I also sometimes, either explicitly or not so, it's either overt or covert. I might overtly say, hey, I have big plans for this player, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I kind of have to whisper in their ear and go, hey, these seniors that we have here are not they don't really reflect my values really well. You're a junior. I'm not going to bother them a lot, but next year's going to be different. After you're leaving a season and you're thinking about next year, it's good to go to each player and say, hey, what are your personal goals? What number do you want to play on this team? Are you willing to play singles or doubles if I need you to? Tell me what you're thinking about that. I mean, I had one player who was disappointed that he didn't get to play singles. That was largely because he was dealing with an injury and I kept him in doubles to help protect him so he wouldn't hurt himself worse. And then the next year, when I asked him, hey, do you want to play singles or doubles? Yeah, I know you want to challenge our number one player. I know it, right? He said, oh no, coach, it's fine. I'll play doubles because I know I can really help the team there. And he went on to play college tennis. So even as a number one doubles.
Well, and going back a little bit of talking about how you spend time with your top players versus your beginners and your intermediate and your JV kids. One of the things that we do, especially at the start of the season, is the varsity are challenging every day for the first part of practice because they're trying to establish the top 10 or top 12 are really the ones fighting for our top 7 positions. So we want to challenge every day, which gives me an opportunity to spend time with the beginner. So we talk about stroke production, we then talk about volley technique, serve technique, and spend time doing a lot of drills. And a lot of the drills that we do here, as you're seeing here, and all these drills are partner-fed drills. So again, it allows me to take a player out who's a raw beginner. A lot of these kids are beginners. I don't know if you can tell that these kids have just been taught strokes. Literally, some of them have been playing a year. Some of these kids over here on the right here have just been playing for less than 6 months. And
I wish all my beginners look like that.
Well, but these kids, this is what we teach them. I mean, we teach these strokes. This is not because they went and took lessons anywhere. None of these kids, especially this court, the one before this one, and these are all raw beginners right here. They've been playing probably a month in this video. So you can see that they're not as refined, but they're already performing at a level that's pretty definable as an advanced player. And so these kids are improving greatly. But my varsity are down playing their challenge matches on the lower 3 courts during this segment. So I'm spending that time with the beginners. Then, of course, the beginners need to go challenge too. They need to start establishing competitive experience, playing their matches, knowing where they belong on the ladder so that they have a point that they're starting. So just remember, folks, there's many ways that you can do this. You don't have to neglect one group to be focused on another group. You can do it very well if you're organized. And we're trying to give you some ideas on not necessarily this exact way, but this is one way that we do it that's very successful. Bill does it in a way that's very successful for him. That's the value of this course, is that you're picking up ideas of like, oh, I hadn't thought of doing that, or here's a drill that we could do, doing Zumba with your kids to warm them up, whether it's a fast hands drill like this drill here, whether it's an indoor drill where they're keeping a ball. And notice, I'm not coaching them right now. I mean, they're doing what I showed them to start, and then I can work with them individually as needed. So there's lots of different ways that you can create a lot of opportunity for improvement, and they don't always have to take lessons at a club or lessons on a private court or do that to become highly skilled. Most of these kids you see here are taught within our program. And yes, I'm a tennis pro. Yes, I know how to teach. So there is an advantage here, and a lot of coaches may or may not have that depth of knowledge focused on what is good technique. So you're not just throwing balls out there and letting kids just flail away, because that almost never produces highly skilled players.
And so there are some ideas for how to become continuously better and avoid drop-offs from year to year that be a discouragement to your team. That's it for now. If you have any questions or comments, or there's a video that you'd like us to make, we will gladly do that. We made a special video on team captain selection, the roles of team captain. So there are going to be a lot of bonus materials that you're going to get. And if you ever feel like there's something missing that you have a question about, let us know. We will make a special video for you, and then we'll get it to everybody else as well.